When it comes to tyrants and villains, Immortan Joe from the Mad Max franchise is undoubtedly one of the most striking antagonists in cinematic history. This character is so fascinating that after the release of Fury Road, a prequel comic was published exploring how an ordinary man rose to a godlike status. Unfortunately, neither the films nor the comics fully explain the character's physiological features, but I managed to dig up some fascinating details. In this video, you'll find out how Joe climbed to the top, how he became godlike. Was he truly immortal? Why did he wear a mask? And what were his unique anatomical features? Let's start with the obvious. Who is Immortan Joe? And what makes him immortal? If you're familiar with the Mad Max saga, you know it takes place in a grim, arid land where essentials like food and water are the most valuable currency. And who rules such a world? Naturally, the one who controls those essentials. Before the apocalypse and before he became Immortan Joe, he was a military officer. Unlike most, he had access to significant resources and power. He seized the gaping power vacuum that emerged during the global firestorm and infrastructural collapse, using it to ascend to a godlike position. This shift blurs the line between civilization and savagery. Joe's supposed mission to restore order in the wasteland was never about noble intentions. It was about power and control. Back then, people called him Colonel Joe. He had access to weapons, manpower, and crucial supplies. These gave him a huge advantage in the lawless chaos that Australia had become in the Mad Max universe. With a ruthless, strategic mind, Colonel Joe used his resources to transform himself into a despot, ruling the wasteland with an iron fist. He created a biker gang that terrorized survivors. With every battle, his gang grew stronger, killing off rival leaders and capturing their women. His dream of rebuilding society quickly took a dark turn. Eventually, Joe and his gang discovered a massive aquifer and a towering rock formation, what would later be known as the Citadel. Thanks to his military background and complete disregard for human life, even before society collapsed, Joe established a new social order based entirely on his power. To his followers, he wasn't just a leader anymore. He became the embodiment of immortality. How did Colonel Joe become a god? As the world crumbled, what little humanity Joe had left faded. He embraced brutality and ruthlessness in its purest form. He gave orders to kill all men they encountered and to absorb women and children into his group. Eventually, this path led him to the Citadel, his fortress in Fury Road, where he was worshipped as a divine being. The wasteland was so cruel that survivors struggled to distinguish reality from legend. Joe was seen as a god when he built 3 towers over the aquifer and expanded his control to harvest even more resources. He captured an oil refinery to the north and turned it into Gas Town to produce fuel for his growing army. Then he took over an old lead mine and turned it into a munitions factory, the Bullet Farm, producing weapons and explosives for his war machine. Interestingly, the Fury Road prequel comic reveals that Joe studied history before the fall of civilization. He likely drew inspiration from some of the cruelest leaders in human history. I believe he used historical military tactics to break through the Citadel's defenses, a pivotal moment in his transformation from Colonel to Immortan Joe. Joe embodies many traits typical of cult leaders and dictators. He's a powerful speaker, using impassioned speeches to manipulate and rally his people. He's also an arrogant tyrant, constantly reminding everyone of his control over the Citadel's resources. This reinforced his grip on power, especially when other warlords like the biker horde leader Manticore challenged his rule. But Joe had something they didn't: a fanatical army of loyal war boys, brainwashed from birth to see him as divine. They were willing to die for him. In return, Joe promised them a place in Valhalla, granting them glorious deaths in battle. That's why they sprayed their mouths with chrome paint before charging into death. It wasn't just a ritual, the paint was laced with drugs to dull fear and make them fearless. It also served as a visual signal. This wasn't just another soldier. This was a kamikaze on a final mission to die gloriously and reach Valhalla. Ordinary death wasn't an option for them. Only this theatrical, sacrificial demise would open the gates to Valhalla. Despite his totalitarian rule, Joe believed he was doing good. He thought he was saving the people of the wasteland. He rationed water, organized crop production, and even ran a selective breeding program to ensure a successor could carry on his divine legacy. Although he deeply cared for his wives, Joe treated them more like property, his treasures. In the Fury Road comic, he complains that his wives don't appreciate what he sees as generosity. Still, he protected the ones carrying his children, ensuring they never did anything that could endanger their lives. Ironically, this became his weakness, something Furiosa and the Five Wives exploited in their daring escape. Was Immortan Joe sick? At his peak, Joe embodied the wasteland warlord archetype, capable of taking on dozens of enemies. But in his later years, he was a stocky old man with long white hair and piercing blue eyes. His health declined and breathing became difficult. His back was covered in large infected boils. But Joe was the king, and the king gets the best. So he had access to clean air through a respirator mask adorned with horse teeth connected to a massive breathing apparatus on his back. To ease the pain, he covered himself in white powder, giving him a ghostly appearance. Still, his health was far from perfect. Despite trying to maintain a godlike image, he often needed his son's help to move around, clear evidence of how ill he was. His breathing issues were likely caused by radiation exposure. Those boils could easily have been symptoms of cancer. And why did Immortan Joe wear a mask? When we first saw him, the mask stood out, but it wasn't just for show, it was a survival tool. Without it, he couldn't breathe in the harsh desert air. It worked like a life support system, pumping clean air into his lungs, but it also had to look intimidating, so he decorated it with horse teeth, giving it the look of a skull. This helped project both power and a symbol of immortality to his people. It served two purposes, protecting his health and cementing his image as a deathless warlord. Although we don't know exactly when he first started wearing it, it was likely long before he seized control of the wasteland. The idea behind the mask was to resemble a skull, a classic symbol of death. Many fans think the horse's teeth are part of his face, but they're just decoration, an addition to create fear and establish dominance. The idea behind Joe's armor was to fake the image of perfection, a tyrant hiding his decay. His armor was transparent, molded to look muscular, like a bulletproof vest for a special forces unit. It included a chest plate, back shield, shoulder pads, and forearm guards. But it wasn't just for aesthetics. The armor was bullet-resistant and decorated with service medals he'd earned or claimed in battle. More importantly, it supported his frail body. And if you've watched this far and haven't seen Fury Road, you can probably guess Immortan Joe was a fraud. He wanted his people to believe he couldn't die. But near the end of Fury Road, after Furiosa escapes with the wives, Joe gives chase across the wasteland. Historians would call it the Road War. During the final battle, Furiosa harpoons Joe in the face. The chain wraps around a wheel and the massive force rips off his jaw, throat, and nose, killing him instantly. His body was wrapped in white cloth and returned to the Citadel atop a war rig brought back by Max, Furiosa, and the remaining wives. When Max unveiled his corpse, the illusion of immortality shattered in an instant. Despite being mortal, Joe was undeniably powerful. His imposing presence, charisma, and strategic mind helped him become a dominant warlord. He was a master manipulator, posing as a messiah to control fanatical followers. Joe was also a gifted speaker, tactician, and warrior. He could see through Furiosa's plan and was the first to suspect Max's intentions. He was a skilled driver, keeping pace with Furiosa's war rig, and an expert marksman, firing a revolver one-handed while steering with the other. His shots were accurate and deadly. The core of Fury Road is Joe's desire to build a lasting dynasty. He wasn't satisfied with temporary power. He wanted eternal control over the wasteland. So, what do you think about this cult villain? If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. And if I missed something, drop it in the comments.